All right, the biggest story being discussed in Washington, D.C. today actually is taking place in Texas, where Governor Greg Abbott's refusal to back down on the Biden administration's continued push for open borders has now drawn support from at least 25 other governors who released a joint statement of solidarity with Texas. Now, keep in mind, all of this is coming as Senate negotiations for border security legislation continues to deteriorate. So all of this put together is raising questions as to where is all this standoff headed. Well, joining me now from the Lone Star State to discuss this is Congressman Randy Weber. He's a member of the House Freedom Caucus and the Energy and Commerce Committee. A dear friend, Randy, thank you for joining us on Washington Watch. Great to see you again.
Thanks, Jody. Glad to be here.
All right, so tell me what you think. Texas Governor Greg Abbott's not backing down, and now we have 25 other governors who are saying they have his back. Give me your thoughts on this latest development.
Well, good question, Joe. You know, people are saying that Joe Biden has not been very successful. You got to admit he's successful on dividing the country over in more than half of 26 states, actually Texas and the 25 that's supporting, if I've got the numbers right. It's unbelievable what's going on down the border. We were just down there, Michael McCall, Foreign Affairs Committee chairman, and myself and some others. About 4 or 5 days ago, we went on to Mexico City to meet with the president and some of his cabinet members. You go down there, Jody, it's worse than ever before, and it's all Joe Biden's fault. And he's trying to deny that. If you watch what's going on in the news, Kamala Harris, Biden, and others are saying this is about Republicans trying to make it a campaign issue because it's getting close to election. Well, that's poppycock because he's been there 3.5 years almost, and he's had a chance to secure the border, and he's broken it wide open than anybody else. He wants illegals here. It's just that simple.
It is just that simple, and he actually has made this a campaign issue. It is now the number one issue on the hearts and minds of Americans across the country, and as you say, it's totally Biden's fault. Now, let me just here's the other part of this, and having been a former member of Congress working through this stuff like you, the House passed some good legislation months ago, H.R. 2. You have got to be sitting here at this point, Congressman, thinking somehow we have the solution. We have passed the solution in the House. If only Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate would take action on it. Give me your thoughts. Is anything going to happen with H.R. 2?
Well, absolutely. We like to say that, you know, the Democrats are the opposition, but the Senate is the enemy. And H.R. 2 had four very main points that if they would have simply taken it up and passed it, we would have been in a lot better shape. Number one, stop, catch, release. Stop the parole thing they were doing. Reinstitute the Remain in Mexico policy. And then, of course, build the wall. But the truth of the matter is the Democrats don't want to stop the immigration. They say we want it as a campaign issue. But look, let me jump over to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled, in my opinion, 5-4 ruled erroneously. Once again, they got it wrong. No shock there. And I'm going to bring up something. And Abbott was right when he said Texas, in his press release, Texas has the right to defend itself. But I'm going to go a little deeper than that. You think with me. When the founders of this country, who absolutely put at risk their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor by signing that document, they absolutely knew that they were forming a country. Now, think about this, Jody. The federal government didn't form the colonies and the states. The colonies and the states formed the federal government. And to them, 10th Amendment, all the rights remain to the people. That's not enumerated in the states. That's not enumerated in the Constitution. Why doesn't the learned Supreme Court get that? I don't understand.
Excellent point. I mean, that is the reality of how these great United States came together. And from those United States, a federal government was developed. An excellent point. And why they don't get it, I don't know. Let me hit from this angle with you as it relates to the southern border. Those over in the Senate, and I mentioned this a few moments ago, but those in the Senate who are handling negotiations for a border deal, they seem to have kept this whole thing very close to the chest. They've not let a great deal of information out. Have you, members of the House, received any updates as to what's happening over there?
You know, I certainly have not. And even Chairman McCall, when we were down in Mexico, he did not indicate that he had. And I kind of took from our comments in meeting with the Mexican officials that we really don't know what the Senate's doing. I don't know how much longer they're going to wait. We're running out of time. I'm glad Texas, thank God for Texas, for Governor Abbott. I'm glad they're standing their ground. I almost, for Joe Biden to want to nationalize the Texas Guard, I mean, how scary is that? I almost think that the governor should tell them, look, nothing personal against y'all, but if y'all come in here, this is Texas property, Texas land. We put stuff on the river to secure against those foreign invaders. We own that product, whether it's wire, whether it's balloon barriers, or whatever it is. And if y'all put your hands on that stuff, you're stealing Texas property, we will put you in jail.
Yeah. Well, we're thrilled with what you're doing too. I do want to switch topics, but before I do, I know, Congressman, you hear from your constituents daily. And as we talked about a few moments ago, the border issue has become the #1 policy issue for the public. What are you hearing from voters in your district?
Well, it's border, obviously. It's inflation, obviously. It's the lack of a president at the helm, if you will, who's cohesive, who is cognitive, who is able to do things. The question really becomes who's actually running the show. We hear that. We hear that the funding for Ukraine, we should be funding our own borders. Jody, when we were on the border, we talked to a CBP official that had been there 27 years, and he made an interesting comment. He said, we don't, they talk about money and all this kind of stuff. He said, all this flows like a huge fire hydrant. And he said, we don't need more buckets to catch the water from the fire hydrant. We need the fire hydrant shut down. And that's what my constituents are saying. We need the border shut down. We need to not give money to Ukraine until we've dealt with our own border. Now, on the other side of that, Israel, we're a very, very conservative district. We love Israel, and we would like to see the bill pass out to get Israel taken care of. That's the main things we're hearing.
Well, let me just segue into that now that you've mentioned it. You're the co-chair of the House Bipartisan Task Force on Combating Anti-Semitism. And the United Nations International Court of Justice has ruled, in fact, just today, that Israel needs to take measures to prevent genocide in Gaza. But it stopped short of ordering the immediate ceasefire in their war with Hamas. What's your take on that, real quickly? We've got about a minute or so left.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm a Texan. You know how conservative we are. Border with Mexico. 2/3 of the United borders with us. So think about this. If Texas was getting, choose a number, 10 rockets a day, 20 rockets a day, 60 or 70 rockets a day from down in Mexico, how long do you think it would take for us to be down there in full force? I mean, it would take, what, 1 or 2, 3 days at the most, Israel has the right to defend itself. And I want to postulate this. Unless they eradicate Hamas entirely and completely, it's going to be like that little girl in the movie Poltergeist, remember? She used to come to the screen and say, they're back. Hamas will never go away unless they cut off the head of the snake, and that's what they've got to do and get them all.
Well, absolutely. Israel has the right to defend themselves, and I would just say with an exclamation point, so does Texas. Thank you for your leadership in all of this, Congressman Weber, and thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.